All right, so time is running out to reach a deal on the debt ceiling. Not long ago, the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, echoed President Biden and said negotiators made, quote, progress. That's the word here in Washington. It's been the word for like a couple weeks now, progress, as it relates to the debt ceiling. Let's bring in now our Washington Bureau Chief, Mike Viqueira, for a closer look on all of this. Vic, in that little montage there, I heard a lot of noise. And then I heard Janet Yellen saying, I need the debt ceiling raised by next Wednesday or else we're going to have problems.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I love a good montage as much as the next guy, Blake. But I mean, you gotta separate what they're saying in public from what's going on behind the scenes in private, which we really don't know a lot of the details, although there are indications that they're coming closer and inching closer to a deal. But basically, when they come outside these meetings or when the speaker comes in and out of the Capitol and he's mobbed by reporters or the president has shouted questions, they are saying it's more or less semaphore to certain factions within their own party to try to bolster their support within their own party. So when and if there is finally a deal, they'll have the support needed behind them to make it happen and to follow through. And if you look at this, really, Kevin McCarthy is in a very tough spot. Yes, there are Democrats who are unhappy with the way the White House is handling this. They think that President Biden, should have a much more forceful stance in these negotiations, drive a harder line, not give an inch, because they believe, as is traditional, that the party that refuses to raise the debt ceiling has the onus on them, both from a political and an economic standpoint. This time, it appears to be somewhat different. The White House does appear to be negotiating after saying they wouldn't. But look, Kevin McCarthy is in a difficult position because if he goes back at anything that was passed by the House of Representatives, remember, they did pass a bill to raise the debt ceiling, largely driven by conservative priorities, even though conservatives had to give some. He's not going to get that in any final deal with the White House. Conservatives are already saying they're going to bolt. The way the House works, if you're the majority party, you cannot go and ask for the opposition party, in this case Democrats, for help in passing things without weakening your position. And if anybody's a weak leader in terms of congressional leadership, it's Speaker McCarthy. 15 votes to become the Speaker. So if, in fact, this bill hits the floor and he has to have Democratic support, it's going to be political trouble for him. Blake?
You surprised it's taken this long? I mean, they've been talking about it for weeks into months, and the deadline has just suddenly sort of crept up, or is this just what we do here in Washington, get to the deadline and then put something together and move on?
Right. No, nothing happens until both sides are peering into the abyss, and it's clear what public opinion is who they're going to blame, who's going to suffer the most political loss if things really go south and the economy or the financial markets go haywire and go sideways. That's when real movement happens. And Blake, one thing we got to point out, if they walked out of there today and said, we have a deal, it's this, this, and this, it's all over but the shouting, really, because then it has to come to the floor. And all of the internal political dynamics in the House between conservatives and the Speaker, between Democrats and the President, they're all going to come to play. And we're going to hit these moments where it appears like the whole thing is going to go south as we inch closer and closer into what Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, called a quote-unquote hard deadline, but still there's wiggle room there. We really don't know exactly when that deadline is going to be, Blake.
All of this is overspending. Not all of it. A lot of it is overspending and what to do about spending going forward. You talk about the national debt approaching $32 trillion.
Right.
How much do we expect spending levels going forward to be pulled back here? Like, Republicans want it pulled down as much for as long as possible, and Democrats want it as short as possible and as the least amount of cuts. So, like, what's sort of the middle compromise here?
Well, first of all, there's one thing Democrats want to be as long as possible, and that is raising the debt ceiling so they don't have to go through this again while President Biden is in the White House. Right now, obviously well past the 2024 election, that's what they're shooting for, and that appears to be, from all indications, what they're going to get. Yeah, $32 trillion in debt. The annual debt now about $1.5 trillion. We're talking about a drop in the bucket here, right, Blake? I mean, whatever they cut, whether it's reduced spending for the next fiscal year is kept equal with this year or perhaps below this fiscal year 2023, it's not going to make a dent in the deficit. It's hardly going to make a dent in the annual spending deficit. Or should it's not, and it's not certainly not going to make a dent in the $32 trillion
it's a lot, whichever way
it's a lot.
whichever way you talk about it.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.